It didn't. It did, Nicole.
There you go. It is recording.
Okay, great. Let me go back. So I need to put captions on now too. Okay, good evening, everybody. I'm Alderwoman Lee from the 11th Ward, and this is an 11th Ward Community zoning meeting. It is Tuesday, June the 4th. And we are here at this time to discuss a zoning change for 1110 West 35th Street. It's currently zoned M1-3, and the owner is seeking a zoning change to C2-3. We have with us this evening Paul Levy, who's the owner, his attorney, Tom Murphy. They will be presenting at various times here, and I will be sharing my screen. Appreciate everybody joining us. I'm going to just switch over here and
And our
share.
architect is here.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Rebecca will present.
Yes, and the architect's here.
Patrick Rosen.
Patrick Rosen, thank you. I was going to call you something totally different. I'm so sorry. Just don't call you late for dinner, right?
No.
Okay, so let me share my screen so I can bring your presentation up. What a time for Dell to be optimizing my computer. Sorry, everybody. No. Okay, and just for everybody who is on the call with us, if you haven't been on one of these zoning community meetings before, we bring the we bring the party that's seeking the zoning change to provide a presentation as to the plans that they have for the site, the reason for the zoning change. They present their plans. This is a type 1 zoning change, so that means that these plans are important because that's what they're going to file for the zoning change. And they won't be able to vary from that without coming back and going through the process all over again. You'll have an opportunity to ask questions or raise issues. That's the whole purpose of these meetings. If there are things as neighbors or as residents in and around the area that you're curious about or that you have a concern about, our goal here is to address as many of those in advance as possible, and then try to make some tweaks if needed. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Patrick.
Thank you, Alderman Lee. Can we get the full, can everybody see the full screen?
Let me do that. There you go.
Or get all the images to fit on the screen?
Oh, I can't get every
No.
single one. I'll
No, each individual one.
each individual one. This is as big as I can get it here.
Okay, that's fine.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. As Alderman Lee said, my name is Patrick Rosen. I am an architect working on this property with I'm working for Paul Levy here to my right. And he has asked me to prepare some proposed potential plans for this property that we're looking at right now, which is the former Central Manufacturing District Bank and Club Building on 35th and 35th and Aberdeen. Moved in a little bit from the corner to 1130, I think.
1110.
1110. Thank you. And more recently than this photo shown, it was the, thank you.
We're
Thank
going
you.
to start with the townhouses.
No.
Are we not?
No,
No.
35th Street, 1110 35th
Oh,
Street first.
okay.
Yeah.
And then more recently, it was a Byline Bank, and has now been vacant for approximately what, 4 or 5 years. So we are seeking, or I'm not, Paul is seeking the change of the property designation to a C23. And the proposed plans that we've prepared are to convert this building into residential units, apartment units. And if we go to the next slide, you can see a map of the area and the current zoning of adjacent properties. And what we're speaking right now of is the 2 blue properties changed from M11 to C23. And if we go to the next, you can see the survey showing the bank outline. Thank you. And the current drive-through, which we saw in the previous photo for the ATM drive-through deposit lane, as well as a parking lot. So if we go to the next slide, you can see this is the proposed site plan.
Where do you want to start here?
There's the whole thing.
Whole thing?
Yeah,
Okay, there
that's
you go.
good. So the bank has 2 stories. Has a grade level, has a second floor. In the rear, it has a penthouse that becomes a partial 3rd floor, and then it has a full basement. And what we're proposing is using the ground floor and the 2nd floor, and the 3rd floor penthouse area for a total of 32 residential units. And they're comprised majorly of 1 unit or 1-bedroom units. And then we have, I believe, 6 2-bedroom units and 8 studio units. And you can see in this plan too that we have provided parking. You can also, one major thing to note is that the drive-through canopy and also the ATM addition that was built onto the side has been removed. So we're bringing the building back to its original footprint, the original 1904 footprint that removes some of that unsightly drive-through and storefront for the bank that was put on. And we're doing this for 2 reasons. One is to gain more area on the lot for parking to accommodate all the units so that every unit has a car. And we actually have 2 additional spaces. We've got 32 units and 34 parking spaces with this plan. What it also does is it allows, does 2 more things. One is, I think it makes the building a lot more attractive, restoring it back to its original grandeur. And also it allows these units that you see on the left-hand side to have direct access to windows and natural light and view of the newly landscaped parking area. And this is just sort of an enlarged 1st floor plan. As this is kind of a major renovation of this building and a major adaptation and change of use, we are installing an elevator, which you can see. I don't know if
Where's
it
that?
records to the map. You see the X?
Oh, right here in the middle.
No,
No.
that's a light bulb. That's an important thing.
Oh, here,
Yes,
Yes,
right
right
here.
thank you.
Yeah,
Yes.
yeah, sorry.
So,
Oh, I gotta zoom in a little bit, you can see that.
so this
elevator.
will be served by an elevator. And if you go back, one of the challenges with this building, because it is such a major, massive footprint, is getting light to a lot of these interior units. And fortunately for us, the original building was designed with a light shaft, which was the original X that you were pointing to,
Right here.
which allows us to have apartments on in the center of the floor. And then if you go to the 2nd floor plan, you can see the units in the very top of the sheet, which is at the north end of the building.
Here,
Correct. Those units are to be duplex units, and the reason for this is that we want all units to be served by the elevator. However, the ideal location for the elevator, which we determined previously, won't reach the top floor. So if you go to the next plan, you'll see that this is the upper level of those northern units, which have, because they're duplex units, they have 2 bedrooms each on the 2nd floor, 4 units in the back. And then we can go to the next slide. This is also, we talk about bringing the building back to its original grandeur. This is the interior of the 2nd floor club room. And this will be incorporated into the apartment units that are on the 2nd floor. And I believe that might be the last slide.
it is.
It is. And at this point, if there's anything I missed or if there are any questions, I'm here to answer them.
Great. Let's,
Just
go ahead, Paul.
historically speaking, the Central Manufacturing District was a development company in the early 1900s that developed all the stockyards area. And they still exist in an office downtown. But all of the entire stockyards was subdivided by them and, and a lot of the buildings right around us. And this was the bank that financed these companies, was in this building, and it was a private club for the members of, who had bought property from them. And so there are these grand fireplaces and paneled rooms, and it's an interesting history of Chicago.
Now, there's a question that says what level apartments are these, luxury, market, or affordable?
No, there's no subsidy involved. They're all market rate.
So this would be market rate that would be subject to the affordability requirement because it's more than 10 units. So that's a 20% of the units have to be affordable. So that will be met at the end of the day. But these are rental units. They're
Right.
yeah,
Correct.
they're
And
not
also-
condos.
And also, I'd say, given their scale, some of the smaller units are about 500,
Yeah.
500 square feet, so even at a, per foot square cost, they are going to be affordable to students and young people.
If you've got any questions at this time, that weren't in the chat, you can please raise your hand, use the raise your hand function or take yourself off of mute, and just give me a shout out. There's really not that many of us on the call that we couldn't handle that. Any questions? Just gonna go through here to see if I can see anybody that has any.
This is Eamon Connolly speaking, resident just down the street. I'm just curious about access to the parking lot. Is all the basically access from 35th Street?
Okay, we'll wait for you, Lou.
Eamon is speaking, but it's.
Oh, sorry,
it's
hold.
just dictating.
Hello?
Oh, that's weird.
Oh, I was asking about.
Eamon,
access to
Eamon,
the
we
parking lot.
can't hear you, but I can't hear you for some reason. Hold on. Let me turn up the volume in here. Eamon, can you try speaking again?
Hello, can you hear me?
That's so weird. We can't hear you here, but we see it's picking up on the captions.
Yeah.
We can dictate what he's.
My question.
Yeah.
Okay, so we can't hear him. We'll read what you're asking. Go ahead and ask your question.
Everybody else can hear him.
We're just at a complete handicap over here. I'm so sorry.
It's weird.
No, it
It's weird,
shouldn't come through the
Nicole.
television. It should actually come through that speaker.
Hey, Nicole,
Okay,
it's weird.
where
I
is
could
the
hear
access
it.
to the parking lot? 35th Street entirely? So let's go back to that. And I guess Patrick, you.
Yes, so the main, so currently there are two curb cuts on the existing parking lot.
On
One for
35th Street.
On 35th Street. One for the drive-through and one for the separate parking lot, which we saw on the survey. Currently, we're going to one curb cut, and then there is alley access, if you
Back here.
pan up,
Yeah.
yes.
Here.
Now, that's not necessarily intended to be regular access, but for a moving truck or for any sort of large vehicle that it can't make any turns, so
Do you foresee that being fenced off in the back or just open?
fenced off.
Fenced off so that when somebody needs access, it can be
It can be
unlocked.
opened, yes. And
So-
that's, and then you can see also the trash enclosure facing the alley. In the rear, sort of in the center of the parking lot, facing the alley. At the north end of the.
At the
parking
north
lot.
end. So here,
No,
no,
in the center of the parking lot.
oh, here, I
Yeah,
see it now.
Yes,
That's the trash enclosure. Okay, so there's other questions here. Let's go back and then Lou, I haven't forgotten about you. I don't know why we can't hear anybody else but ourselves. So all via 34th place or 35th. So this, it would be a reduction of driveways from 2 to 1 off of 35th Street. And when needed, there can be alley access on the backside of the property. Will there be a loading dock?
And currently in this plan, we do not have a loading dock, so. The loading would happen through the front entry facing the parking lot.
Here?
Correct. And as this is a residential use,
Uh-huh.
the only loading we foresee would be moving in and out
Furniture.
furniture, correct?
Lou, I don't understand why I can't hear anybody right now. This is so
Can you hear
weird.
me?
I
Are you able to
apologize.
hear me?
Lou, can you type your question in? I'm so sorry. I'm not sure what the difficulty is with my setup here.
Thank you.
Can you hear it?
Yeah.
The TV remote?
There.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
Can you
Here
hear
we
us?
go.
Yeah.
Now
Can you
we
hear me?
can. Thank you. Good call.
Yes.
Excellent. Are you, all right, great. If you can hear me, then that's awesome. That's great.
We can hear
Uh,
you.
Yeah, well, thank you. Thanks, Paul, and thank you, Tom, for and Patrick for sharing this with us. I think a couple of different things, and Paul, this kind of carries over into your other project on 34th Place as well. I think this in combination with both the other project that you're considering on 34th Place brings a lot of density into the area. And we already have a lot of challenges on due to the Spiegel building, which changed its permitting process, or they changed its zoning process from what they pitched Patrick Thompson to what they actually use it for. So that creates a lot of problems on the 1000 block. There's parties going on late into the night. They originally went at having a multi-level parking lot, and then they changed that plan with Patrick. So that whenever they have their oversold there or at Joe Brothers across the street, it creates a massive parking mess in the neighborhood. So there's that's I think one issue is the parking and the density to the area with multi-units. To the affordable housing part, and I understand we're trying to make affordable housing, but I don't know that anybody on our block is looking to have we've been here since a lot of us since 2006, you know, when the block was put up. Across the street a little longer. So I don't know that we're looking at having our property values devalued by, you know, apartments. This side of the ward is already dense in apartments and Section 8 housing. So I think that's a really big concern on this side of the ward, because there's already a lot of density and a lot of apartments. And I mean, apartments bring a different type of, you know, neighbor to the community because they don't have a stake in the neighborhood. They're transient. They're going to be there for the term of their lease, and then they're going to move. And I'm an apartment owner as well. So yeah, I'm very selective in how we work with our tenants on that. So that's a concern. The other issue I think that has been posed in the conversations with various members of the community has been the block on Aberdeen between 34th Place and 35th Street is a very narrow block. Currently, I mean, when you get cars parked on both sides of the street, it's very difficult for cars to go by. So there's going to need to be something, Nicole, done with that block if any or both of these projects go through. You know, I think that's a fundamental issue there. So either you're going to have to go to diagonal parking or make it a one side of the street parking only. That's the one issue. So there's density, there's parking on Aberdeen, and then I hate to say it because I'm going to keep harping at this. The speed and pass through on 34th Place has gotten even more out of control. I know that we talked at one point about cul-de-sacing the block. I don't know where we are on the traffic study, but I don't know how any of this goes with the park a block away and the density that we've been getting through the block on a continual basis. It's a safety hazard for the kids playing in the park, or the block is poorly lit. And lately we've been getting a lot of people cutting off 35th Street to zoom down the block. If I was to run a camera there, you'd see them come through at 45 miles an hour, right past the no speed zone, which is basically poorly signed and poorly lit. and they just cut off onto Racine and make a left or they make a right. So I think there's are four big issues: public safety, parking, lighting, density, and the issue on Aberdeen that I think give people a lot of pause. Then there's garbage pickup in the alley part, which I think it was asked in a different way here. I think that's another issue that comes with this. So Paul, I know you're trying to develop the property, and thank you for doing that. I just think we have to come to an accord on how we do this in a manner that doesn't, one, destroy our property values, because we've all been invested in here and we've seen the downturn of a recession. We are starting to come back out of that now. Our property values are doing a lot better, but I don't know how apartments in the proximity of our homes on the 1100 block are gonna, or the 1000 block, are gonna impact our property values, which I'm very concerned with.
Okay, that was a lot, Lou. And hey, good to see you on the call. Let me try to get to these sort of one by one, and obviously, you know, Patrick and Paul and Tom are here to answer questions as well. I want to make sure we can answer some of these at the same time too. There was a question from Jeff, I think, about hold on. The ratio of parking to units. It's 1-to-1, and they said they have 2 additional spaces. They have room for 34, and they're planning for 32 units. Jeff says his garage sits across the street or across the alley from the proposed garbage station, and he's not excited about that. So it is a trash enclosure, and that because of the size of the development, it has to be private trash. So it'd be dumpsters that are going to be back there. And covered off. And for those of you who don't know, Paul also has the Bridgeport Arts Center, which is just down the street here. So they're very familiar with the area. I think we can talk about, you know, building management in a separate conversation, but Lou, I wanna address the cul-de-sac question. I'm definitely open to it. I think that, you know, looking at the 34th Street conversation is the next one, but you know, I think everybody who's on here probably will tune in for that one as well. There is a proposal by the same parties here to develop some townhomes on the other block, which I think will do great things for your home values at the end of the day. So to address the density question or the issue that you raised, Lou, this is not going to be Section 8. It's not going, affordability is 80% of area median income, and that's not a small amount of money at the end of the day. I think, you know, I'm looking at Carlos right now, for a single person, what is area median income? Can you look that up?
Yeah, I want to say
62? So it's 80% of that? No, 80% is 62. So 80% of area median income is $62,000 a year. That could be someone who's starting out as a teacher. That could be someone who is, you know, working as a laborer for the city. Could be someone. So it is not Section 8 by any means. It's just making sure that it's affordable. Right.
This is not our idea. The city, in order to develop it, that's a requirement in the zoning ordinance.
I think that the bigger issue might be, and I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I'm just taking from what I'm hearing from you, Lou, is the number of apartments that are going to be there. So most of those are going to be studios. There's no space big enough for anybody to have a wild party in this. There's not a party room. There's not that kind of amenity. We discussed this early on when Paul and Patrick came to see us originally. You know, I'm actually pretty happy with this proposed use, because we do need more apartments, more apartment stock in the ward. It's on 35th Street, so it's not right in the smack dab in the middle of a residential area. There's parking, and we don't have this luxury in a lot of other places where we're putting up apartments. So, you know, and these are intended to be places where, you know, if you're an artist or you're somebody that, you know, has a place at Bridgeport Arts Center in a workspace, you know, this is walking distance. You could have a little place where you could, you know, spend the night or, you know, live out of and then work across the street. So I think that was something that I don't want to put words in your mouth, but I do remember us talking
Right,
about that
that's true.
when it came to the original design. I know that Mr. Levy has had this property on the market for quite some time and a lot of fits and starts with, you know, people who wanted to have event spaces. And I think that would have been a much bigger concern for the community, to be honest. I like the idea of a museum, but that never came to fruition. The other, I think, semi-viable plan that was presented was for there to be an event space / training center for like, you know, production of movies and things like that, but that never came to fruition. So I'm happy that this is not an event space, that it's a place for people to live, that we're gonna have some opportunity to have units that I think are more efficient for, you know, this day and age. And the fact that it is along 35th Street with access to the 35th Street bus, I think is pretty desirable. On Aberdeen, Lou, I'm happy to continue to have this conversation. We can look at what changes could be made to that block to make that more workable, especially because, you know, in the next conversation, we're talking about adding townhomes to 34th.
Right. And I think that's that, and I've seen that project, at least the initial one that Mr. Levy shared with us. And I've shared it with the neighbors on both the 1000 and the 1100 block. A few of them are on this call. I think that again, and I'm echoing the concerns that came out of the dialogue that we all had, and that is that block is currently that block of Aberdeen is very narrow. So some bump out or one direction is going to need to be made. A traffic reroute is going to have to be done because there's a lot of, you know, traffic that goes through there. It's unsafe, you know, and then, you know, that in combination with limiting the throughput on 34th Place would be very helpful because it's just, you know, we don't have the lighting. We have a lot of people just tearing through, and it's not safe for the kids in the neighborhood that play in the park. And it's not safe for the residents of the neighborhood that walk along that area. So I think we're going to add more density to it. I think we need to do something that addresses egress and changes the flow of traffic there, or broadens the street. If you broaden the street, that might fix it too. But right now, when you got cars parked on both sides, it's very hard to get by. And it's just going to get harder when you start putting apartments and guests start coming for people in apartments and all that wonderful stuff. It's gonna, yeah.
Lou, do you guys have permit parking on your street? I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, I would recommend that if that block goes, and you know, we have it up to the entryway to the parking lot for the bank. It's not, obviously we can't do it on the side of the park. And then the side of the 1100 block that is just adjacent to the park is that. So one half of the block across the street.
We can pretty easily look at extending that because, you know, you can't put residential parking in front of an address that doesn't have a residence on it. That's actually against the ordinance. So once the houses are built, we can certainly extend that residential parking zone, and nobody from the apartment development that we're looking at right now would have access to, you know, an RPP for there's parking on site. And then you can park along 35th Street in certain spots.
Yeah, because I think that's the biggest concern, is bringing a lot of traffic to the area. The density, and like I said, you know, I mean, the other side of Bridgeport doesn't have this problem because it's all single family homes. This side of Bridgeport historically has always been apartments and multi-units, so it's always had that. You know, what I mean, back you talk to the people from the old time that they call the west side of Bridgeport the Wild West, because it was always the apartments, and there was anybody that kind of moved through a lot of transient, you know, things. And that's the concern. I mean, we've stabilized that with Bridgeport Village, with our block and May Street and several other blocks. But there's still a lot of that, you know, in certain blocks. It's a block by block thing. You know, it's just, I think it's a bit unfair because it limits our property values.
Lou, you know, the underlying zoning here is M1. And if you look at those uses, I think they would depreciate your property values significantly over what this is. So you can't keep it as vacant property forever, because we have a zoning there, and we tried to conform to what was marketable. And we've had people break into this building. They've been rage parties in the building, which you may or may not be aware of. So, and then And then it can be used for other things. It's nice because it has a drive-through that would allow some, drive-through kind of thing, which would create its own set of traffic issues. And I think if you have some alternatives to this, it would be interesting to hear what they are, given the existing zoning. But I think this is the best of all worlds for your property values and will dramatically increase them, not decrease them.
Right. I guess I'm looking at the cumulative impact, Paul. I understand the zoning part, and I'm thankful, like I said, they're very thankful that you've thought outside the box on this, and you're wonderful at that. One of the challenges that I see, and I think I tell you it's cumulative because I sat in the meeting with Patrick Daley Thompson when we looked at the Spiegel building, and I know what they pitched, and I know how it's being used now. And it's a live work place where people throw parties to really late at night. So either Nicole, you're going to help us crack down on that building and help the challenges and limit what is done over at Joe Brothers, because when they throw things, there's parking. They park over on our street. They park up and down Aberdeen. There's all kinds of things that happen in the alley on the 1000 block. I mean, we've got to curtail some of that behavior. That just makes it unsavory to want to be, in a dense area. I mean, if I wanted that, I'd still live back up in Wicker Park, and that's highly dense in my book.
Well, and I don't think we're ever going to get to that density, what exists in Wicker Park, to be fair, Lou. I mean, like this is 32 apartments, most of which are going to be studios. I think it's going to attract students. I think that this ward and the west side of the ward has been changing for a long time. I will push back on you a little bit in that, we do have apartment buildings on the other side of Halsted as well, not to the extent that's on the west. Obviously, there's a lot of older buildings that are multi-units over there. But to be fair, this is something that personally, when Paul came to me with this proposal, I again was really pleased because I know there's folks that are still trying to move into the ward. And there are units here that are 2 bedrooms that could be for a young starter family. It's close in proximity to a park. I don't see this as, something that is going to necessarily, lower your property value. And again, there isn't a space that's being built in here. I see Jeff Schulte's comment, 10 luxury for sale condos and a restaurant called The Vault on the main floor. I don't understand what that means. That's not
an idea. I think it's an idea there.
Oh, that's what your idea is. I'm sorry, I didn't understand.
No.
I mean, that would be a cool thing for the restaurant to be called The Vault downstairs, because it is kind of a unique space, historically speaking. And, I think they tore all the boxes out of it now, but it's a really, I've been in the building. It's gorgeous. It's a bygone to yesteryear. They don't make banks in buildings like that anymore. But, so, maybe something creative like that, kind of splitting the difference,
Well, C2 would.
Let me just say it this way. We've had a sign on that building for 4 or 5 years.
I know
No restaurant, no restaurant has ever, barely anybody's been interested in it. And no restaurant has ever been interested in it. And there is one on the north side at Lincoln, I'm sorry, Milwaukee, Ashland and Division. It was a bank and they did a restaurant in the Vault. It closed.
Well, and that's a lot denser than
Yes.
this area here. So, and Lou, I know you know this, right? To support that kind of retail, you need some level of density to support that. So, look, I hear from a lot of constituents that people want a walkable neighborhood. They want to be able to walk to things, and to attract the businesses that will invest, that you have to have, you have to have enough density to support the businesses. This is an idea that they're pitching to you. You're not in the restaurant business. You're not
No.
that Levy, right?
No,
Okay.
not that.
Different Levy. Yeah.
Different Levy.
That's the last business I want to be in.
Tough
You're a
business
smart
right
man.
now, I'll tell you that.
I
Yeah,
know.
for sure. I'm confident, Lou, and folks about the traffic issues. We can address that from an infrastructure perspective. We can certainly look at, and we can request an engineering estimate for what it would take to what the cost would be to cul-de-sac that street, your street. off of Racine is what we're talking about, right? If I recall correctly, is that right, Lou?
Yeah.
Okay, we can ask for an engineering estimate and then we can see how we can fit that into, into the menu budget. And I think we would look to time that close to when the houses are built. So I mean, we have a little bit of time and I could probably, save up from, a couple years worth of menus to make that happen, along with whatever,
Can you hear me?
whatever other is recommended. I'm sorry, was someone just talking?
Yes, my name's Melanie. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Go
Hello?
ahead, Mel. Yep,
Yes, I live on the 34th place block also, between where they're talking about the cul-de-sac. This topic was brought up 10 years ago by the same people that were on this call, some of them, and it was completely researched. As a result of the park, the playground being there, there's an egress issue. So they can't, there was a study done, I think, by the city and the fire department. They cannot cul-de-sac this block just because they need access. So that topic, unless something's changed, maybe it has, that's an issue that I do know exists. And I don't know if everybody is supportive of it being a cul-de-sac block. So I'm saying that because there's other opinions out there on all of this. So I just want to get that out there.
hey, Melanie, thank you for that, and I'm certainly, we wouldn't just do that all willy-nilly, right? So that's something I feel like is a separate conversation, but I understand why it's being raised here, because if we're bringing more people to the area in this sort of like square block radius, there will naturally be concerns about additional traffic coming through and how that gets managed. So I'm
It's
happy
pretty
to
fairly
help.
unmanageable. Melody lives a couple doors down from me. She'd agree that the traffic flow through here is high speed.
I don't know that I do agree with that, Lou. So
I'll put a video camera out there, Melody. I see it. I'm right in front of the park. I see it all the time.
okay,
Who does?
as do I. So
So
I'm just saying that I just don't want, there's different voices represented here, and I just want to make sure that the different opinions, like you said, Nicole had said that this will be considered. So I just wanted to get it out there that I'm not just summarily agreeing with what was said. That was about the point I wanted to make.
thank
So
you
that
for
was it.
raising it. And we can have a completely separate meeting with the residents in that area about potential infrastructure changes. And we'll bring CDOT in, we can invite CDOT and their traffic management engineers to come in and talk through and answer questions. I like to bring them in because I'm not an expert at these things. And it would be helpful when we do get to that point, if we can get from folks in the area, like when are the biggest pain points? Is, CDOT will come out and do a traffic study, but they may come at like the absolute worst time when there's like no traffic at all. And really what we want them to take a look at is maybe, 3 o'clock when everybody's getting out of school and the trucks are getting on the road.
Of course. So, yes, thank you.
And Juan, and Lou does talk to me, and I hear from other people as well about the activity in the alley. And I am trying to curb some things happening in that Spiegel building. And anybody that's asking about new stuff, I'm not really interested in late night parties for anybody. So I want to just round things out because I think we're coming right at time where we need to start the next meeting. I am not hearing any sort of really overwhelming objections to this. A couple of points that were raised is the trash enclosure. So I think make sure you put a high fence as you can around that. And we want to make sure that obviously you don't want the value of your property to diminish at the end of the day. So, you're gonna make sure that that's kept up.
The trash enclosure is actually facing the garages of the properties that we're about to talk about next.
Right. And then parking, I think we've addressed that. It's 1-to-1 and then they'll have 2 additional spaces. Obviously you see that there's going to be landscaping involved in this as well. So I think overall it's going to be a nice improvement to the block. And as we said, this is something that's going to be subject to the city's ordinances for affordability. So 20% of the units. So what would that be? 7 units then we round up. 7 of those units will have to be at the affordability requirements of the city. Let me make sure there's no more questions. I don't know about this. We talked about property values going up or down. Is there some kind of study we can reference? I'm not a realtor, so I wouldn't know that. I don't know if anybody on the call is or could speak to that. But again, the next, Matt, did you have something?
I don't say that there have been studies that have done about when an apartment building goes into particularly the neighborhood that is already particularly dense. The answer is not clean cut, but it really comes down to what is the building replacing? And so since this is providing reuse of a building that's currently vacant, it's likely not going to be having any real increase up or down for related areas, just because it's not changing
The residential.
the existing housing stock. So it's more of a net addition. And so that's the primary takeaway from a lot of studies for when it's something like this that's infill housing.
Got it.
Nicole, I got an ask of Paul and the team. Looking where that parking dumpster, the dumpster's at, can you guys scroll down a little bit? All right.
Right here.
So, yeah, right where you just put the cursor is my neighbor's house. Right there. My house is right next to it. I would love it if you would put the parking dumpster or the dumpsters over in parking space 25 and move parking space over. I mean, honestly, I don't want to have the dumpsters next to my house. I really don't.
What side of the block are you on?
He's here.
I'm right. That's right there. That's my house right there.
Okay.
Yeah, we can look at that.
We can look at that. We can move
Yeah.
it over. We'll shift it to the other.
It might be
Yeah.
easier.
I think
It
it's
might
more
be-
convenient
yeah.
for the residents too, you
Yeah.
know?
No,
Because your
that's a
exit
good-
door is right there.
Right. that's a
Yeah, it'll
good
be closer to the building and I'm assuming you have
Yeah.
trash chutes built in someplace. I don't think
Yeah.
everybody's gonna have to walk out to the dumpster to
No.
dump their trash. So you'll have some building management that will empty those. Yeah. Okay,
That's no problem.
done and done. All right. Well, thanks everybody for joining. I am inclined to support the requested change here. To enable Mr. Levy to go ahead and convert this building. And I think it's a nice adaptive reuse. I'm mindful of the time, so I'm gonna switch over. We'll end this here and then everybody, there's a separate Zoom for the next meeting, which is for the townhomes on the block behind this, the Byline Bank building. Okay, thanks, everybody.